the old spirit, and the remaking of the world. It was dusk when we set out for the Elder's lodge. The sky blazed with streaks of crimson and gold, casting a warm light over the rolling hills, while the last birds of the evening chirped faintly in the distance. The journey to the lodge was a sacred one, for the Elder did not call for us lightly, and when he did, it meant there was something of great importance to learn. We walked in silence, each of us lost in thought. "Look at the sky," Hara said, her voice soft but filled with awe. "The red streaks mean that the spirits are calm tonight." I nodded, understanding her meaning. Elder always told us that when the sky turned red like this, it was a good sign. The spirits were at peace, and when they were at peace, the world itself seemed to breathe a little easier. It was a rare night, a night where the air felt soft and welcoming, and yet beneath that calm exterior, there was a sense of anticipation, as if something great was about to unfold. As we entered the lodge, the fire inside was already crackling, sending small sparks into the air that danced like tiny stars. The Elder, a man whose face was etched with the lines of countless seasons, sat in his place of honor, a quiet, thoughtful look on his weathered face. His long, braided hair fell across his chest, and in his hands was his pipe, which he set down gently as we approached. "Come closer," he beckoned, his voice like the wind moving through the ancient trees. "Tonight I will tell you a story of great importance. This story has been passed down through our people for many generations, and it speaks of the time when the world was remade by the old spirit. You must listen carefully, for this is knowledge that you too will pass down to your children, and they to theirs." We gathered around him, sitting on the soft furs that lined the floor, our eyes fixed on the Elder as he began his tale. "Long ago," he said, his voice low but clear, "before the people walked this land, the world was inhabited only by the animals and the birds. Each one had been taught by the old spirit how to live, how to find food, how to build their homes, and how to care for their young. The wolf knew to hunt the deer. The eagle knew to soar high above the mountains, and the bear was taught to sleep through the cold winters when food was scarce. But there came a time when the balance of the world was threatened. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the rain began to fall. At first the animals thought little of it, for rain was a part of life. A blessing from the sky that made the plants grow and filled the rivers with fresh water. But this time the rain did not stop. It fell for days and then for weeks. The rivers swelled beyond their banks, the lakes rose, and soon, the land itself was covered in water. The animals were afraid. The water chased the fox out of his burrow, soaked the owl's nest high in the trees, and even flooded the bear's cave, forcing him to flee. Everywhere, the creatures of the land were driven from their homes, their food washed away, and their families scattered. They knew that if the rain continued, none of them would survive. In desperation, they decided to seek out the old spirit, the one who had made them and who knew all things. They traveled for many days, climbing high into the mountains where they knew the old spirit kept his fire. When they arrived, they found him sitting alone, watching the sky with a heavy heart. The fire beside him crackled, but it seemed small and dim in the face of the storm that raged around them. The animals gathered around the old spirit, a strange sight indeed, for there were predators and prey sitting side by side, their fear of each other forgotten in the face of the greater danger. The wolf sat beside the deer, the hawk next to the mouse. And even the great bear stood humbly among them, his usual pride replaced by fear. The old spirit looked at them and raised his hand for silence. "I know why you have come," he said, his voice deep and calm, though there was a sadness in it. "The world is in trouble, and you fear that it may be lost. But fear not, for I will find a way to save it." The animals waited in silence, their eyes wide with hope. They had faith in the old spirit, for he had always protected them, and they believed he would do so again. After a long moment, the old spirit stood and picked up his great walking staff. With a single blow he felled a mighty tree. Then another and another, until he had gathered enough wood to build a raft enough to hold all the animals. "Climb aboard," he told them, "for the water will soon cover all the land, and this raft will be your salvation." One by one, the animals climbed onto the raft, their fear momentarily eased by the old spirit's presence. The raft was strong, made from the wood of the oldest trees in the forest, and it floated easily on the rising water. But as the days passed, and the rain continued to fall, the animals grew restless. They had been adrift for what felt like an eternity, and there was no sign that the water would ever recede. The old spirit sat in the center of the raft, deep in thought. He knew that something had to be done, for the water showed no sign of stopping, and the animals were growing weak from hunger. Finally, he called the great heron, the most skilled diver among the birds. "Heron," he said, "you must dive beneath the water and bring me a handful of earth from the bottom. With it, I will remake the world." The heron, brave and swift, spread his wings and dove deep into the water. But even he, with all his strength, could not reach the bottom. The water was too deep, and he returned to the surface, gasping for air. One by one, the other animals tried: the otter, the beaver, even the strong-limbed elk, but none could reach the earth beneath the water. Each one returned to the raft, exhausted and defeated. At last the smallest among them, the turtle, stepped forward. "I will try," he said quietly. The other animals laughed, for how could such a small creature succeed where the mighty had failed? But the old spirit did not laugh. He nodded and said, "Go, turtle, and may your courage guide you." The turtle slipped into the water and began his slow descent. Down, down he swam, deeper than the others had dared to go. His heart beat slowly, and his lungs burned for air. But he did not stop. He swam until the light of the sun faded, and the cold darkness of the deep surrounded him. Just when it seemed he could go no further, his small claws touched the earth at the bottom of the water. With great effort, the turtle scooped up a handful of mud and began the long journey back to the surface. When he finally emerged, he was nearly lifeless, but in his claw was the precious earth. The old spirit took the mud from the turtle's hand and placed it in the center of the raft. "You have done well," the old spirit said. And he breathed new life into the turtle, who opened his eyes and smiled. Then, the old spirit began to mold the earth with his hands, shaping it into a new world. As he worked, the mud grew, expanding until it became a great landmass once again. Trees began to sprout, rivers flowed, and the animals leapt from the raft, overjoyed to feel solid ground beneath their feet once more. But the old spirit was not finished. From the earth he shaped two new beings, one man and one woman. He breathed life into them, and they opened their eyes, seeing the world for the first time. You are the guardians of this land, the old spirit told them. You will care for it and protect it, for it is your home, and the home of all living things. And so the world was remade, and the animals returned to their homes. The man and the woman lived in harmony with the creatures of the earth, caring for the land as the old spirit had commanded. The rain stopped, and the sun shone once more, casting its warm light over the new world. The old spirit watched from his place in the sky, content in the knowledge that the world was safe once more. The elder finished his tale, and we sat in silence, the weight of the story heavy on our hearts. The fire crackled softly, and outside, the stars shone brightly in the clear night sky, as if the old spirit himself were watching over us. This is the story of how the world was remade, a reminder that even the smallest among us can achieve great things with courage and determination.